Hello everyone. With Sumeru right around the corner in a couple of months, I think it's time we can start speculating and thinking about what we will be going to see in Sumeru, as we can base some of our expectations of the lore that we have seen so far, and also how the Inazuma release went from 2.0 to 2.6, 2.7, which we are on now. As the first topic, I would like to talk about the Dendro element. Now, I haven't seen any leaks on the Dendro element yet, but what I am personally predicting is that the Dendro element is going to react really well with Electro. We are currently in a meta where the Hydro, Pyro and Cryo reactions have a sort of amazing synergy with each other in a triangle. But Electro is kind of left out of it, as it doesn't really have an element that it synergizes that well with. I think Dendro is going to synergize really well with Electro, so that they can be combined into making another good synergized element, as Electro really does need that buff, definitely for elemental mastery users like someone like Yei Miko to proc reactions instead of just applying Electro. But I also think it's a good alleyway for Dendro to bring something new to the table. As far as Dendro characters, we know that Baiju has a Dendro vision, but for the rest we don't really know much about the upcoming Dendro characters. I would personally love to see some sort of Dendro Claymore user who really harnesses the power of the forest to maybe be some sort of mix between a Zhongli, who is all utility and shield, and something like a good damage dealer that also applies a lot of reactions, similar to Nuel but for the Dendro element. I also think Dendro has a lot of potential in creating a lot of cool new character archetypes, and what we do know is that we're getting some form of female Archon for the Dendro element. She is also the youngest Archon as present, but this doesn't really say much about her, as all the Archons are really old. So she is still approximately like hundreds or maybe even thousands years old. So she could still be a fully grown up person, as Archons age differently from normal people. For Sumeru itself, we've seen from Inazuma that Genshin Impact really has taken some creative steps towards making the landscaping more and more innovative. I think for Inazuma we have the difference between the Lightning Island, the Sangonomiya Island and Ankonomiya, and the total contrast between these kind of places. Sumeru is rumored to have either very foresty areas and a sort of a desert. What I am personally really hoping for is that we get a plain. Now, plains are absolutely beautiful in most kind of games. Long stretching landscapes filled with maybe monsters, some buildings, but mostly that you can just see far and wide into the distance. And you can explore all sort of maybe small caves inside of this massive plain where you can explore. I think Sumeru would be a really cool place to have a giant plain filled with plants and wildlife and more interesting visuals that we really haven't seen from Genshin before, as almost all of the places in Genshin Impact are filled with elevation with different mountains. But we haven't really had a long stretch of land where you can just sprint through, and it's a completely different experience. So personally, I'm really hoping to see a big plain in Sumeru. Now, a desert could also give a similar vibe to the gameplay, as it is still a long stretch of land which you can sprint through and view objectives like maybe buried ancient mechanisms with all these ancient monsters that we have in the game now. And we could maybe even get some extra lore from Kandrea, found below the depths of the desert. So I'm really hoping that a plains might be added, but a desert would also fill the same hole in gameplay, where you have a massive open space that you can explore without the obstruction of mountains and climbings, but more the long distance between two places. I would also really love to see, if a desert is added, that there are some sort of hindrances. Like you have to occasionally find water or an oasis to survive, as there's an additional mechanic about heat stroke. That's how the desert is not an easy place to survive, and you cannot just wander in and walk through it easily, but you have to become as a prepared adventurer. And for the towns within this desert, I feel like we could get some example for some other games within desert themed towns, or just from real life, and we can build a picture on how these Sumeru towns probably would look. Maybe with a little bit of a pinch of that ancient machinery in it again. As for the jungles, I am expecting that we are going to see some village inside a tree, or as a treetop village, where the village is mostly on top of the trees and built from different huts which you traverse through over walking bridges like we sometimes see in other video games. Having an airborne village like that is definitely something new for Genshin Impact, and I would really love to see something like that, as it seems quite interesting. And the most bold prediction I'm gonna make in this part is that Sumeru is the country of wisdom. And I think there's going to be a massive tree similar to that of Elden Ring, where you have the Earth Tree. Where there's going to be the Tree of Wisdom, which is where the Archon resides. Just like the Raiden Shogun's massive house in Inazuma. For the soundtrack, we all know that Hoyoverse is going to absolutely bring out some bangers. Definitely with a different genre, as we've seen completely different genres of music kind of between Inazuma and Liyue. I'm curious to see what kind of theme Sumeru is going to have. Will it have more of a classic jungle theme as is often implemented inside of games like Tomb Raider, or will we see a bit more of a different theme? I think the music is just going to be an absolute banger because it always is in Genshin Impact. And lastly, the gameplay in Sumeru. Now the gameplay in Sumeru, I think first of all we're gonna have the hardest puzzles we have ever seen, because Sumeru is the country of wisdom. So I think they might stretch their difficulty from their puzzles a bit more, where the puzzles are harder or maybe longer to solve, as it really is fitting with the theme of the location. I do really hope to see some new sort of approaches towards combat events, as currently we have the kind of same loop of combat events where it's either some enemies guarding a chest that you have to open, or just in general enemies ambushing you or standing in your way. Some more maybe timed challenges or some new challenges around combat, so that combat feels a little bit more fresh and maybe a little bit more difficult or frequent. Like you could get sucked into some sort of chaos gate or abyss gate and get plonked into an area where you have to clear all the enemies within 2 minutes. Like a mini abyss for a chest. Those kind of things I would love to see for Sumeru, and I predict that we are going to get some new flavors of both those puzzles, but definitely also some new flavors for combat. So to conclude, I think Sumeru is going to come with a lot of more ancient machinery like we saw in the chasm, where there is a lot of big plants and jungle trees, but also that ancient machinery snake. And we will be seeing some interesting new kinds of landscapes with big jungles and massive trees, but also a desert. I think MiHoYo has a lot of opportunities here to make something truly special. And I can't wait to see it in game myself. Hello there! If you watched this video all the way to the end, I would like to let you know that I really appreciate the time you've taken to watch some of the content I make. I make other videos on my channel and I generally have fun creating them. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.